Guru Nation, you are at the first regional SOS meetup here in San Diego. We've got five site owners on the stage, and this is like a conference dream, a tech vendor that's going to be asking all the questions. We have Martin from Biogenesis here. Martin, thank you for coming. All the questions you ever wanted to ask sites right here, and then you're helping out all your competitors too. Thank you for coming.
Perfect. Thank you.
I like that expression from Mark. And boom.
Maybe before we go, everybody go down just who you are really quick so people know.
Martin.
Perfect. Well, my name is Martin. I'm the founder of Biogenesis, and we're working on tech for sites and sponsors and CROs.
Thank you. Judy?
Judy Galindo, co-owner of Sun Valley Research Center, co-founder of Latinos in Clinical Research, co-founder of Save Our Sites, and the Clinical Research Circle, and many other things.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I'm Brad Hightower, site guy.
Lifetime radio voice.
He missed.
Thank you. What a great launching point. Derek Williams, Hope Clinical Trials, and site owner and business developer.
Chris Sauber, site guy.
Good job. So 5 site owners. Any questions you want to ask? Pain points. These are all small to medium-sized sites, I would say. Brad's probably the biggest, but you still consider medium-sized? Or?
Yeah, I feel relatively small in the grand scheme of things, but yeah, probably small to medium.
So it's like your target audience.
Yeah, well, maybe I can start asking about maybe some simpler question to start with.
Anything.
Not about theology as we talked about before. I would be curious to hear, what do you think, or what do you, in your eyes, is the future where you would like to go in clinical research?
Me personally? Or as
like
the industry?
A general question about where you would like to see the industry, as well where you would like to see.
Who wants to go first
just
with
like
that
a
one?
general of the question about a future.
Better rules. That's what I would like to see. My biggest complaint is the FDA offers little guidance, and you have variance of opinion from sponsors and CROs on the guidance and how things are to be done. It's the biggest complaint I have about the industry. Derek and I were just talking about this.
Yep.
It's my biggest complaint by far.
And I think what I'm really excited about is actually meetings just like this, meetups just like this, that provide an opportunity for different site owners to get together and talk about what different challenges that we're facing in the industry and solutions, most importantly. And I think the collaboration of site owners will drive the industry into the next chapter.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think, things like this that are helping sites actually be legitimate businesses, where I don't think they've always been viewed that way, or partners like in the drug development process, where, historically I feel like, and maybe it's just me, but sites kind of sit at the bottom of the food chain, so to speak. So whether it's technology, whether it's conferences, whether it's processes, whether it's FDA guidance, but whatever it is that helps sites become a more active and impactful partner, in the drug development process.
Yeah, I would agree with all three. I think more collaborations. We get together. We all have sites, but we do things very differently, or different vendors that we use, or tech, whatever it is. So I think being able to get together and share ideas. I'm always trying to improve the efficiency of what we do at my site for my staff. What are you guys doing that is working? And I actually feed off that, or I might take some of the suggestions and go back and implement it if it's working for you guys or others. And I think that's extremely important.
Yeah, I think for me, it's underserved communities and improving access to clinical research. What we've done in Yuma in 3 years, I know for a fact can be replicated in at least 100 places in the U.S. So there's not enough of that. Way too many people don't have access or have no clue what clinical research is.
I see. Yeah, thank you. Well, maybe a good question here is that a lot of people that start in tech think that they can just slap tack onto something. I think you all agree here, and it's going to work. I don't think that's the case for a lot of the more human businesses, right, that you have to do. So I'm curious about, what do you think are the biggest problems? I think a lot of people that want to do something with sites sometimes just want to slap tech onto it, but sometimes it just doesn't always work. So what do you think are some of the biggest kind of opportunities that can be tech or non-tech related?
Yeah, I guess I can speak to that. When you implement any tech, you have to consider that there's somebody that's going to be implementing that your site. Who are you dedicating? Who's going to learn it? Who's going to be the expert so they can implement it? And then however you're going to use it, that it works for your site. But not all tech is good tech. So there are things that work well and there are things that don't. And I think when it's created, the fact that they did not consult with sites and then expect that it's going to work at sites, I think that's the worst thing.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think there's a lot of tech that's trying to sort of shoehorn itself into site processes that don't exist or don't work. I've been a little bit encouraged because I have seen more companies coming out to sites, see how sites operate. I don't know about you guys, but I've had at least 3 or 4 vendors come out over the last year, spend a day or two on site, talk to coordinators. I mean, look, we all we all talk on LinkedIn, but most CRCs aren't on LinkedIn reading about all the crazy tech and new advancements like in the field. They're just doing their jobs. So to actually have vendors come out, see the pain points of CRCs like at the ground level has been really encouraging, and hopefully we see more of that rather than assumptions I think that are sometimes made by tech vendors.
I would piggyback on that and say, and even more, tech being connected with sites and providing more experiential learning, because all the sites are trainers in some way, especially for all technology that's going to be disseminated to any of the subjects that are involved in a clinical trial. So having the site owners and those CRCs who are responsible for using the tech to be as fully grounded and understanding the technology so they can disseminate it to all of the people that they're working with is very important. I think there's a gap right now in that aspect. I think you might get some slides or very general or brief information, and then you're expected to be an expert on it. And in order to be an expert on it, we need the experts to provide that information to the sites so they also can be experts.
Well, I don't know if I have anything to add precisely in that vein, but I would say to you, Martin, as a tech vendor, whatever you're pursuing, it's really difficult to get buy-in from sponsors. The process is super slow. Even if it's an invention better than sliced bread, it's still going to take you many years to get full buy-in. It's a very slow process. Even if it's, again, a great invention, a great tech application, it's a really slow process, for sure.
I would agree that it's a very slow process, and I would also add one more thing here that I think it's I think it's a shame that not more people are doing tech for general, just pharma. A lot of people are doing tech in other industries, and I think the issue is like why are not people doing more tech in pharma? I think maybe this is a good question. Why are people not doing more tech for sites, more tech for pharma? Why are not more people like from Silicon Valley coming into this? And for me, my answers to what I've seen since I'm more involved in these communities, I think is because they just don't know. They don't know what they don't know, and it's not easy to learn about this industry, right? And I'm wondering if democratizing this information and exactly what you're doing is not the goal actually, because it's so easy to learn about other industries. You can read a book. There are millions of videos online, right? But about pharma, no one even knows that there are, when I ask someone, no one even knows how many phases there are in clinical trials, not even to go further into how the depths of the sites and everything else works. So, yeah. Yeah,
it's a good point. I mean, I think we're seeing a little bit more site-focused tech, but let's be honest, who has the money?
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
It's not the sites,
That's
right?
right.
The sites are generally not the ones who are flush with cash to invest in technology. And even then, you run the risk of that technology not being accepted or adopted by the sponsors that you work with. So I think, to your point, first of all, it's incredibly niche, or feels like a very niche industry. And then you get into the maybe Chris's point that there's so little guidance that you have incredibly risk-averse sponsors. So even when sites bring their own technology solutions, there's no guarantee. So does it make sense to sell to sites if you're trying to have hockey stick growth, as a, private equity backed company? Probably not. And that's unfortunate because I think, that would more focus would obviously make the ecosystem better for everyone. But until that dynamic changes, I remain skeptical that the focus will go that way.
And I wanted to add exactly what you guys are doing, connecting with sites, getting that perspective, feedback to design something that works for sites, I think is the way to do it. So if any of these tech companies do want to come to the industry and put their money somewhere, that's definitely a way to start, is whatever it is that they're trying to resolve, the inefficiencies, get the sites involved.
That's a way to start, but from their perspective, that's not a business. The business actually create a product, and I think that's the reason why we're seeing a hesitancy, because it's not just the sites that have to agree, it's the sponsors, the CROs, all these other vendors, that there may be lower hanging fruit in other industries. And the good news of that is there's less competition in this space. I know with what you guys are trying to do, there's maybe one or two other players, maybe. And that's really the variable, is maybe. So I think that's the real reason, is you have to have so many people agreeing on what's going to work, and let's try.
Yeah, I mean, in my perspective, it's kind of a shame that a lot of people say that they want to help and do something in healthcare when they come from tech, but they don't stumble upon the clinical research side of the things. They sometimes stumble upon other things, and it ends up being not that useful, which is, I would say it's kind of disappointing, because at the end of the day, like, everything to do with clinical research, from early stage drug development to working at a site, working for sites, or doing anything for pharma companies, CROs, like, at the end of the day, this is pushing research. And I honestly wish more smart people would find this, because essentially we get the most benefit out of, like, general, like, as people, if there's more drugs, there's more things that can make people healthy in general when they're sick, because there's definitely lack of them by a lot. Right, so
Make America healthy again.
Yes.
Sponsored by Modelo.
Well, maybe a question here then. What is something that you would like to see from, maybe primarily from tech vendors, to do something, just one thing that is very specific, maybe something that pertains to your specific problems that you have been seeing?
That's the thing. I think most things have been thought of or given to sites. I mean, the lowest hanging fruit is patient recruitment. There's other tools around workflow organization, like VersaTrial did a really good job. Very simple product, what VersaTrial did, and they got acquired by Florence. I think most of the stuff's already there, but as we've discussed, there's things around contracts and budgets that are still a bunch of inefficiencies. I know Judy and Brad and Chris, this is like things that they're dealing with presently, but I would say the next frontier is contracts and budgets, maybe. I think everything else has been looked at. And the race to the bottom. Huh?
Do you think everything else has been solved?
I don't think it's been solved, but I think the race to the bottom causes profits to dwindle for the vendors. And so now you have, like, ubiquitous tools, like, what's the difference between Creo and Real Time, or Patient Ace and 1N Health? I mean, price, really. Like, assuming they function similarly, which they kind of do, it's price. So at that point, more entrants just drop the prices down. But in these new frontiers, there's no one there, and that's where there's the arbitrage of being first to market in those places. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I would still like to see a better solution for sites on how to run their businesses, and whether that's a CTMS or something similar. Yes, there are commercially available options out there. I don't think any of them really do the job well enough. And I think if we want things to get better, we need to support sites. Need to be better supported, and that means they need to be able to run their businesses better.
The next place you can compete is, like, almost free. So, like, for a tech vendor to enter that space, maybe that's like a good loss leader for something else they want to do. Hey, free CTMS, because there's no more room to, like, negotiate Creo, Real Time, all these other CTMS vendors. They kind of have a lock on that market. So the only thing that's going to beat that is free, in my opinion.
How about a plug and play platform? I know that's the appropriate term, but you even complained about this, Dan, having 14 different passwords for 14 different applications. How about one application where you log in and every application for the trial is right there, and you're already logged into all of them?
But for that to work, so IQVIA is working on this.
Yeah.
And a
one
few
home-
other sponsors are doing that too. So depending on the studies, you start to see that, but still not 100% efficient.
IQVIA is doing it, and they're not making money on it. They're just doing it because they have a bunch of cash, and they know that this is what sites want. But if you're a brand new tech vendor, that's a very difficult proposition to compete with. Like IQVIA is willing to lose millions to solve this problem. Why would a startup get into that space? From your perspective.
Yeah, I think it is a difficult question, and I'm with Brad. Even though all these systems exist and vendors, for my site specifically, none of them are efficient. Patient recruitment vendors are not efficient. I mean, even the CTMS, they work to a point, but they're not 100% efficient. And they don't incorporate all the things that are useful as a site. For example, business development. How do you guys handle business development? We each have our own process. I'm going to be honest, ours is on Excel sheet that works the best right now. But, you know, there's specific things here and there that, like, I think we each struggle with that we haven't found something 100% that works for us.
Well, I think that's a great space, though, you know, just as Dan was saying. And I think what you were saying really is innovation. I don't think there's any industry that can't use innovation. You know, you already have the product, but can you make the products better? You know what I mean? So, and a part of that, though, is having forums like this. There needs to be a communication. There needs to be a dialogue where the tech vendors,
We're not paying him to say this.
Yes.
because you have to find out what your market needs, right? You can't solve a problem without asking what the problems are, right? So what happens in our industry is they just continue to think that they're innovating by adding new features. And adding new features isn't innovation. It's just another feature. Innovation is providing something for the industry that's actually useful. And in order to find out, absolutely.
The new frontier. The reason IQVIA's thing works, it's a walled garden. They got all the vendors to say, yeah, whatever you want, IQVIA. You want our logins? Here they are.
Well, they're large.
Because IQVIA chooses
Yeah,
those
like the
vendors in the
Walmart
first
is,
place.
you know.
Like the reason there's a vendor in that study in the first place is because of IQVIA. Whereas a new entrant, you're not going to have that power or that leverage to be able to do that. You're going to actually be needing to do that, which means you're going to have to go meet with all those vendors at different events like this. And that's kind of a lot of work. There's a lot of easier ways to make money, I think, than competing with IQVIA's walled garden. So part of it is the middlemen are prohibiting the innovation, I think, or like they're kind of creating the innovation themselves, but only in their own ecosystems to prevent new entrants from coming in.
Can I ask you a question, Martin?
Please.
So,
Gonna start a site.
yeah, no. Do you prefer a gathering like this or a large conference space?
Oh, like this, 100%.
100%.
And
There's
why?
Ashley right there.
100%.
And why specifically?
Well, I think at least for me, because I haven't, or I think for anyone that wants to gather as much information and have built real relationships, because I feel like for very large conferences, it's mostly transactional. It's mostly about getting contacts, right? It's most like building a Rolodex. In this conference, it seems like it's not even conference, so it's these meetups, I can call it. It seems like it's more personable. Like I'm meeting with people, not with like contacts, right?
And it's not
Yeah.
rushed, right?
Yes.
Whereas you're meeting at these different spaces and they've got a line of people that want to meet with them. This is more intimate and more one-on-one.
Yes,
Okay.
I definitely agree. Yeah. Well, maybe an interesting question I would have is more about tech. So I think there has been a lot of in the last, I would say, year and a half. There has been a lot of push in AI, and I know this may seem like a space that is a bit oversaturated and a bit. I don't know if there could be any use or not for the sites, for the sponsors. So I'm curious, what is your perspective on this, and if there's something specific that you think could be useful, how can AI be applied to sites?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm going to admit right off the bat that I'm not that knowledgeable about what AI is even capable of. I do think as a site, when you're dealing with a protocol and lab manuals and pharmacy manuals and all the different insane amount of documents, excuse me, that sites deal with, I like maybe there's a good place for AI to be able to query, study documents, which seems like very low hanging fruit. If you're a coordinator, you're on visit 6, and you look across visit 6, and there's 7 different sub things going on at this visit. Like, how can you more easily display this information? I feel like it seems like low hanging fruit for AI in my experience, but I'll admit I'm not that knowledgeable. That's where my mind goes, because again, we see these big regulatory packets that come through, and asking a coordinator to be able to parse through a 200-page protocol, multiple pharmacy manuals or multiple lab manuals, and figuring out what to do is a challenge. So I don't know why we can't dump that into something where it's easily queryable, or at least spits out something a little more instructive. Whereas right now it feels like as a site or as a coordinator, you're sort of you're a private investigator. Like, for every visit, you got to figure out all the things to do, all the hidden things, look for all of the little subscript that are below the schedule of assessments. And I don't know why that's not something we could solve with some, some ease.
Agency, like coordinator agent, like a coordinator assistant would be a great AI. Like, this is visit 6, this is how to not screw it up. And then the coordinator is going to know, okay, that's how I don't screw it up. I know the rest.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times, like, there's a protocol deviation. It's because, we didn't look at page 87.
Yeah.
Section.
The footnote.
Yeah, exactly. The footnote that exists,
Like,
that
if
you're
this
like,
happens,
well,
if
shit,
this
how was I
obscure
supposed to
thing
see
happens.
that? Like, it's impossible. Or, you didn't connect that to the lab manual. You were supposed to let that sit for an hour before you spun it down.
Yeah.
And it's a lot to ask, especially if you're a coordinator who's got 6 to 10 studies, which is not uncommon, unfortunately. So, again, I feel like that should be low hanging fruit, I feel. But
Any more AI stuff? We got 5 minutes before we got to wrap up.
I'm curious to see how AI is going to help sites. I think I'm kind of like Brad. I know a few things here and there that are coming out, but how is that going to help me be more efficient in my job, my coordinator, my research assistant, my pre-screener recruiters? How can they identify a patient faster based on a 15,000 patient database that I have? I know there's some things in the works with that. How can we make it more efficient for my staff to do their job where they're not spending hours, and we can cut it down to like a half hour, minutes?
AI. Chris, there.
So I personally deal with a lot of sites that have little experience. And one of the questions they often have is, what are the qualities I should look for in hiring a coordinator? And I used to give the advice, attention to detail, being able to shift gears, and can write a reasonable sentence, right? Because you're conveying a lot of information when you write. And with the push by the FDA for a demographic change in terms of patient population, that last part is no longer significant with AI, right? Being able to write a reasonable sentence. Because if we're trying to delve into a Hispanic community on the border, there may be some second language English speakers who they're looking to hire as a coordinator. They don't need to be able to write a reasonable sentence, right? They can use AI to do that now. So it eliminates that one. I don't know how significant that is, but it's not really required anymore. You need to be able to read and write, but it doesn't have to be well, right?
Yeah,
AI
but
will do
again,
that for you.
Like, such a new technology, and it's already being competed down to nothing. Basically, all of them offer this for free.
But the good thing is AI is able, like as you guys mentioned before, it could scan through the protocol and condense it in such a way that it summarizes it. It used to be a time when we used to get a condensed protocol, and used to get more enhanced training during investigator meetings. So with all of that not happening, the need for AI and ability to be able to summarize the information in lengthy protocols, I think is going to be critical going forward.
Last question, Martin, for you. Make it count, because all the tech bros are watching. And the tech girls. There's a few tech
Tech
girls.
girls and gals out
Several.
there.
Yeah.
Last question, and maybe something I would be curious about. What do you think, or what would you like to see from the potential change in administration?
Administration. Wow.
RFK.
We don't have any.
RFK. Come on, RFK.
We don't have any administration. Like at our sites, there's me.
He
my
means
wife.
the presidential administration.
Oh, the administration.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you meant at the site level.
No.
Okay.
The government level, of course.
More psychedelic, nutraceuticals, peptides, everything he said he's gonna do. Not a move away from vaccines, but more long-term safety studies of vaccines to finally silence all sides of that debate. Are they safe? Are they effective? Let's do the studies and see. Do the long-term studies. Of course, I'm biased, but
Yeah, more
Yeah.
studies.
Yeah.
more study, more spending.
Less red tape. Less red tape. Make things the process more efficient. Shouldn't take so long to get things through, whatever the process is. I would like to see more of that.
More spending. See, all the sites want more spending, and all the tech people and sponsors on LinkedIn are saying less spending. Like, it's not the same conversation. We can go down the line and you'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that mine is administration specific, but I think to go back to Chris's, like one of Chris's first points, like more clear guidance. There's FDA guidance from 15 years ago that we're still not really implemented, and we're still not following with any, we're just not. So I'd like to see more clear and direct guidance from the FDA. Now, I don't expect that to be the case, but I know that's what I would like to see if possible.
And me, I'd like to see best practices. Where all of the sponsors now are doing clinical trials in multiple countries. We know it works. They go through similar FDA processes in each country, and there's other, investigational product that's already been approved, that's approved in other countries that could be used in our country effectively. I think sourcing and finding the best practices from other countries and applying them here as necessary to speed up the process.
I definitely very much agree with this point. I think there's a lot of very interesting therapies that are not used in the U.S. at all and are used in other countries. So I very much support this. Yes, I think it's a very good point.
Chris, from the administration.
I have nothing to add to
Maha.
the drugs side of it, but I'm looking forward to the food side of it.
Food.
I just think
Sponsored by Modelo.
too many harmful chemicals are in our food.
Cheers to that. Everyone's LinkedIn is underneath this video and in the show notes. Thank you so much. Thank you, Martin, for coming out here.
Thanks,
and
Martin.
for asking
Thank
all the
you.
tough questions. We'll continue this at other conferences.
I'll ask more tough questions next time. Yes.
Next time. Yeah.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Hey, if you guys like that kind of content, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share. Stay tuned for more videos.